All right, it is time for week one predictions. The season is truly beginning in earnest, and we have games to talk about. Let's get right to it. We're going to start with Auburn at Baylor, a fascinating little matchup between the SEC and the Big 12. I feel like we don't get a ton of those. Baylor last season, sixth in explosive play rate. I think that's one of the key stats for this game is how explosive can that Baylor offense be. I expect this Baylor offense to be able to put up some points, but the question is we're going to get good on good. Like the Auburn secondary against these Baylor wide receivers, can they limit the passing game? Sawyer Robertson can play point guard in this offense. He can make plays. How well can Auburn slow down this Baylor defense is going to be a major question. The other question is you have kind of weakness on weakness as well with the Baylor defense, which struggled at times last season against this Auburn offense, which also struggled. Auburn bringing in a new quarterback. Let's see. Are they able to fix the turnover problem? I think that's going to be a key stat in this game. If Auburn hasn't fixed the turnover problem, Dave Aranda's defense can create some chaos. Jackson Arnold at Oklahoma also had turnover problems. I think it's, as long as Baylor's offensive line can hold up to the talent that lives on Auburn's defensive line, I think Baylor is going to be able to get this win with a home field advantage. I'm going to take Baylor in this game. I'd love to see how it plays out. Going to be a really exciting game. We're going to find out a lot about what this Auburn team can be in this game. Other game on Friday night, Georgia Tech, Colorado. This game, I think you have one clear point of emphasis in this game, and that's the line of scrimmage. Both sides of the ball, that's where this game will be won or lost. Georgia Tech kind of imposes that play style on you. They force you to defend them through the line of scrimmage. You watch the Georgia game last season. Their line of scrimmage talent was able to push Georgia around at times. Colorado has not held up well on either side of the ball on the line of scrimmage. So Georgia Tech's offense, if that line of scrimmage has that they have to overhaul because of losses, will that line of scrimmage be as good as it was last season? If it is, I think their offense is going to be able to move the football. And then they have the major question coming into this season is, can their defensive line be more productive? And they're going against an offensive line against Colorado that has struggled significantly under Coach Prime. So we'll see. I think across the board on both lines of scrimmage, Georgia Tech is going to be better than Colorado. But if Colorado's line can hold up, they do have a talent edge on the outside. Caden Salter is an elite playmaker. I think Colorado could push Georgia Tech if their offensive line is better. I am not going to trust that yet, so I am going to take Georgia Tech rather in this game. Then we get to the big one. Texas at Ohio State. Noon kickoff. Great start to our Saturday. The quarterbacks in this matchup, they've gotten all the attention. Arch Manning obviously has been the talk of the town throughout this offseason. What his reign as starting quarterback here at Texas is going to look like. But I think the questions on both teams in the interior of the defensive line are going to dictate this matchup. I think both teams early on are going to push to see, they're going to test that interior defensive line. They're going to test that rush defense, especially as you're breaking in new starters. Being able to run the football is a great way to settle your quarterbacks into the game. And I think both teams are going to test that. Which team holds up there is going to determine a lot about this game. And I think the major question for Ohio State is if Texas holds up, if that Texas rush defense is stout early, does Brian Hartline, who will be calling plays for the first time in his life, is he disciplined enough to stick to the plan and stay focused on the running game, or will he abandon it entirely, let his receivers try to get to work? So we'll see how that goes. I think there is a talent edge here in the coaching staff. Like the coaching staff can consistency has been huge for Texas. They've had a really coherent staff for many seasons now, and I think their defensive coordinator, you saw the great plan they put together to stop Ohio State last season. Unfortunately, they didn't get the job done on the other side of the ball, but Ryan Day has now had 6 months to dissect that plan and figure out, how do I get Jeremiah Smith the ball? How do I not let him go for 1 catch and 3 yards again this Saturday? And I think during that time, they figured out a plan to get him the ball, to get him more touches, to let him loose a little bit, and also to figure out how to take all the extra resources that Texas is going to devote to Jeremiah Smith and get others open. I expect a breakout game for Brandon Inniss. I think the staff in Columbus is really high about his potential. He's a captain for a reason. I expect him to have a Carnell Tate-like game, like similar to what Carnell Tate did against Texas last year. He had a huge game. I expect that to see that from Brandon Inniss. He's also in the slot. That's a huge key for those guys close to the ball, are big for new quarterbacks, and I expect him to have a huge game. But I think the main question then is if that Texas defensive line can hold up to the rush, are they also able to rattle Julian Sayin? I think that's where Ohio State is going to have the biggest question mark, because I think they're going to try to settle him in through the running game, through easy passes to Jeremiah Smith, easy passes to Brandon Inniss, easy passes to Max Clare, who's one of the best tight ends in college football this season. But if he gets rattled, is he going to turn the ball over and have inconsistencies in his passing game? I mean, I think he skipped a pass in one of his few attempts last season. So if Julian Sayin gets rattled, I think Texas runs away with this game. If not, I trust what Ohio State has done with their offensive line. I trust their running back room. James Peoples is a guy that you were gonna hear the name of a lot on Saturday. I expect Ohio State to come out of this game, unless Julian Sayin gets rattled and starts turning the ball over. I don't think he will. I'm going to take Ohio State in this game. Let's talk about the other game during that time slot, Syracuse at Tennessee. I think the talent gap here is too big. I think Tennessee just outclasses Syracuse, and so I expect them to win this game. The way they lose this game, though, is Joey Aguilar had a lot of interceptions last season. This is not something that Tennessee has historically dealt with under Josh Heupel. Is that something they've coached out of him? Is that something that the Heupel system just doesn't really run into problems with? If Joey Aguilar still has turnover issues, then I think Tennessee, that's where Syracuse can bite them. If not, I think Tennessee is going to run away with this game. Let's stay in the SEC and talk about Alabama at Florida State. This is another one. I get Alabama USC vibes from a few years ago. I think Alabama is going to run away with this game. I think they're too good on offense. I think they're too good on defense. I just think they're better across the board than Florida State. But if Florida State can win this game, how does that happen? One, it starts with the quarterback position with Tommy Castellanos. If he can pull out his inner Johnny Football, he can be a dual threat guy. If he can make plays when the game breaks down, that's a way this Florida State offense can move the football potentially. The other thing is, can Tony White do what he did to Ohio State as Nebraska's coordinator last season? They were able to force them to slowly work their way up the field and really earn their yards, earn their points. I think explosive plays is the key stat of this game. If you tell me how many explosive plays each team has, I think I can predict this outcome. I think Alabama will be much more explosive, and so I will take Alabama to win this game, and I think it might be ugly. Next, let's continue with the SEC versus ACC matchups in a game for LSU at Clemson. Huge matchup. I think we know what we're going to get out of Clemson this season. The biggest question we have in this game is, what is LSU? Let's talk. I mean, Their defense, I think, is a major key to this game. Can they slow down Clemson at all? I think Clemson's receivers are going to have a big steps up this season. I think their offensive line is going to be really good. We know what we get out of Cade Klubnik. I'm really interested to see how this LSU secondary intends to slow down the Clemson receivers. That I think is one of the key matchups in this game is how those units perform against each other. The other question is LSU is replacing a lot on its offensive line. How does that hold up? Can they run the football effectively? Will they hold up against Clemson's elite edge rushers? If the offensive line can hold up, if they can create push in the running game and they can create a balanced offense, then I think LSU could hang with Clemson. I don't trust it quite yet. And so I expect a healthy amount of third down and obvious passing situations where Clemson's edges can tee off on those new starters at tackle. And I think Clemson is going to win in those situations. And that's why I expect Clemson to come away with the victory in this game. Then let's move to Sunday. We get another ACC SEC matchup. And again, I think the talent roster is just too wide here. I think South Carolina is just too talented for this Virginia Tech team. I think the biggest question, I think you're going to see that talent gap when South Carolina's defensive line goes up against that offensive line of Virginia Tech. They're replacing 5 starters there. And South Carolina is elite of elite there on the defensive line. I think they're going to eat, and I think it's going to get really ugly in the backfield. But maybe Kyron Jones can create plays back there. I just don't see him being able to create enough. I think there's going to be too much pressure in the backfield, too much chaos in the backfield. I think South Carolina will take this game. Then we'll go later in the evening, and we'll talk about that Notre Dame-Miami matchup. This is a huge weekend for the ACC. They get lots of premier matchups. If they can win some of these games, I think that'll be really important for the ACC brand and to show the potential depth of the contenders in the conference. But we get Notre Dame at Miami. The big question in this game is that Miami offensive line as advertised, right? I think we expect a lot of NFL prospects on this Miami offensive line. If it performs up to the standard that the coaches down there expect it to, then this offense can start to work. I think Notre Dame's defensive line is going to be really good, so I think that's a really key matchup there. And the other key matchup is has that secondary that Miami has overhauled come together. How much improvement do we see there? Their defense was terrible last season. They have a new defensive coordinator. Has that worked? Has that clicked in one off season? Because we know what Notre Dame can do running the football. They're gonna feed Jeremiah Love a lot. But the difference in this Notre Dame offense from last year is that CJ Carr has elite arm talent. We might not see it. He might be inconsistent. It's not clear exactly how good he's going to be, but I think he can take this Notre Dame offense to the next level with his ability to throw the football. And if Miami hasn't secured their secondary with how much resources they're going to have to dedicate already to stopping the run, if CJ Carr can tee off and just start launching the ball down the field and has wide open grass to throw to his receivers, that is going to be a really big problem for Miami. And then there's the unpredictable aspect, right? CJ Carr's making his first start. Is he rattled? He's going to be making his first start on the road to boot. So that could be an issue. And the other thing is Carson Beck threw more interceptions than any Power 4 quarterback last season. I think he was tied for first. There are a few people up there. With Kyle McCord was up there. 12 picks last season. That's a lot. And if we see that continue, then that'll be really detrimental to this Miami team. I think it's really hard to predict turnovers, and I'm not going to, but I think I trust I don't trust the overhaul that Miami has put into this defense quite yet. I don't think it clicks this early. And so I'm going to trust Notre Dame to get it done. But if the turnover battle goes in Miami's favor, that's one of the ways that Miami can take this game. Yeah. So there's a couple of other games that I'm not going to break down. North Carolina TCU game on Monday night is an interesting game. Check it out. And that Utah UCLA game on Saturday, I think could be very interesting. We'll see how you'll get a good view of what both of those teams are going to be after that game. So really fun weekend of college football coming our way. Let me know in the comments what games you disagree with me on. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.